All right, let's get started. And hello, everyone. I want to welcome everybody today, and thanks for joining the first Kurve Therapeutics webinar. My name is Scott Pantel. I'm the founder and CEO of Life Science Intelligence. And I truly could not be more thrilled to present our speakers today. Kurve Therapeutics is at the forefront of a new era of neurodegenerative disease treatments. Their mission is to help as many people as they can in their fight with debilitating diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and MS. And now I'd like to introduce our two speakers today. Marc Giroux, he is Kurve's founder and CEO. He's a serial entrepreneur with 25 years of experience in business development. He's the founder of 5 companies so far, and he's the winner of the Frost Sullivan Award for Business Development Strategy Leadership. What started as an effort to treat his chronic sinusitis turned into next generation medical technology that has the potential to revolutionize the industry and help countless people. Glenn Cornett, MD, PhD, also joins us. He's Kurve's Chief Science Officer, and for good reason. He's a biotech entrepreneur and advisor who holds an MD with distinction in research from the University of Michigan and a PhD in neuroscience from UCLA. He has spent the last decade of his impressive career developing drugs for psychiatric and neurological indications. It may also be worth mentioning that he holds a black belt in karate and has run 14 marathons across 5 continents. So we'll all be cautious when we meet him. Marc, Glenn, thank you for being here today. I'd like to jump right into it and send the first question over to Marc to frame this up for us. Marc, let's give some background here. Why did you create Kurve Therapeutics? What's the mission? Get us all up to speed, please.
All right, thank you, Scott. Thanks so much for having us and for hosting this meeting. It's great to be with you. Creating Kurve Therapeutics was not actually the goal at the start. As you mentioned in the introduction, I have chronic sinusitis. I've had it my whole life. I was working with a physician on why spray bottles were doing such a lousy job to help me with that. And when he was explaining it to me, I realized what he's talking about is a physics problem, not a chemistry problem. It's not a biology problem. It's physics and fluid dynamics. And I just mentioned to him that there has to be a way to do this better. And he said, well, go figure it out. And so I did. And what I was trying to do is get drugs into the nasal cavity that had greater reach. And I just set myself the lofty goal of, I just wanted to get everywhere. So that was kind of the goal, get everywhere. And when I succeeded at that, and we showed the results at the University of Washington, that was when it started to get exciting. I was just trying to say, did I succeed in actually what I was trying to do for myself? And it turned out that a lot of people got excited about it because this was something that had been chased, I guess, for quite some time. And that's when, around the time where we could demonstrate that what we put into the nasal cavity would go wherever we wanted it to go, the nose to brain people came calling and they said, look, we've been trying to do central nervous system disorders by getting drugs directly into the brain through the nasal cavity, but we can't get the drugs to the part of the nasal cavity where they need to get. And where they were trying to go is the olfactory region, and what we had already gotten past that. So to us, that was actually a lower level shot than what we'd already accomplished. So we then had to figure out how to concentrate it there. And once we did that, we started to get involved in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and a lot of other diseases. And it just took off from there. So it's been a pretty exciting ride in what we've been able to do in an area where there simply weren't any options. So Kurve's mission at this point is to take that ball as far downfield as we can, not only with our own drugs, but partnered with Big Pharma on their drugs. So if there's a central nervous system disorder out there, our mission is to be involved. So that's where we are today in 2020.
That's great. Really exciting times. And we're going to get to some of the other applications, I think, a bit later in the session. But, share a little bit more about your vision for Kurve and really just for the future of neurodegenerative disease treatments. Give us a little bit of the vision for the future. Where can this go?
Well, one of the things we've learned over the time that we've been working in this is that there are 600 or so neurodegenerative diseases that a human can get. Now, admittedly, the vast majority of those are orphans, but there are some big players that need to be tackled because the patient populations are simply so much larger. And that's where we had to focus. But we want to be involved in all of them. So the future of neurodegenerative diseases, we want to be our delivery technology and our drugs, or our delivery technology and somebody else's drugs. So we're actually willing to compete with ourselves, where we don't feel in one particular disease state that one drug is a one size fits all. It's not necessarily the case. So if there's a big pharma company or a specialty pharma company that has an idea, we want to get involved early and we want to be a part of it. So right down to the animal models, all the way through, your phase 3s and 4s, we want to get involved and work with you and the FDA. So, I guess what we want, and for the future of neurodegenerative diseases, we want the world and everything in it. So we want to get involved in anybody who's doing anything in these states. If we can get it in the brain better than an infusion or a pill or anything else, then you should be talking to us. That's what we want.
Well, that's great. And I know we're going to get into some of the other indications again towards the end. One of the things I like to ask, and one of the things I personally love about healthcare and med tech and in the space that we're all in, is that the solutions to problems that we're all going after, impact often those around us. So tell us why this, why are you going after this, and why you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's one we've been asked before. I guess the why us is because we can. This was something we found out that we could do, and how important it is to globally to attack these diseases. So if we have the opportunity, we're obligated to do it. But my father was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment for Alzheimer's. His 5 sisters were diagnosed with it. His 5 sisters actually died from it. He did not. He was the youngest, and we had developed technology to the point where we were actually treating people, and we were able to get a device into his hands. And we did this with a doctor at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. And 9 months into his therapy with our technology, he was declared symptom free, and that if he had walked in that day for the first time, he would not have been diagnosed as mildly cognitively impaired. So there's a connection I think everybody has. Everybody knows somebody with some sort of CNS disorder, dementia, even if it's just age-related memory loss, we all suffer from, or they know somebody who has one. So, getting involved in this has been super rewarding, not just on a personal side, but a lot of the patients that we work with become part of your life. And as they improve, if you have an Alzheimer's patient that was moderate, and 7 months in, it gets re-diagnosed to mild because their test scores are better, and attention span, verbal fluency, short-term memory, they're able to drive a car again. Those people become part of your lives because they're telling you all of this, right? It's really exciting to see someone who is fitted for a wheelchair get up and walk and say, I don't need this device anymore. My condition is so much better. So, when times were tough for Kurve, as we were working our way through getting the company off the ground, these little successes were what kept us going. An Alzheimer's patient says, hey, I just got back from the doctors and my test scores got even higher. We know we can't quit. We have to keep going, and we have to tackle as many of these things as we can. And there's a lot of opportunity here. So that's why us. We can and we should.
That's great. That's great. And I know
Probably
I can
more
also
of an answer that you wanted.
No, that's great. I think it's really important to establish that up front, why you're doing it and what can be done. And I can personally relate to it as well. So let's get into the technology a little bit. I know that Kurve Therapeutics has developed a patented controlled particle dispersion technology. Let's talk a little bit about the technology. How does it work? What makes it different from other systems? Let's get into the technology.
Okay. The obvious competitor, I guess, is the spray bottles, which, as I mentioned, was our nemesis in the beginning. It just wasn't doing a good enough job. We needed to understand what the anatomy was like. What's the environment we're trying to get into? There's air pressure, there's airflow, there's the anatomy, a lot of things to overcome, and no other technologies were actually trying to do that. So there are 4 areas that you have to control if you want to overcome these things. Droplet size, exit velocity, atomization rate, and turbulent flow. Those are all the physical parts of what's critical to function inside the nasal cavity. So we had to be able to figure out what all of those parameters are and what's ideal for putting the drugs where they needed to get. As far as the olfactory region goes and getting it in there for the CNS disorders, you have a very small window of droplet size control you need to maintain, and we can do that. So then once we have that, we add the other three parts to it, and now we know we're going to be successful. For things like infusions or even pills, it gets systemically into your system. And that's when the blood-brain barrier becomes the problem, because it prevents drugs from getting in. I'm going to let Glenn talk about that in just 1 second, but there's a couple of ways to access the brain, and one of those is through your systemic system, through the blood, and the blood-brain barrier causes a problem. Or you can bypass it, which is what we're doing, and we're going around it. We're not attacking the blood-brain barrier at all. It becomes a non-factor for us. So we have direct access to the brain, and we actually have shown in our clinical studies, in our measurements, that we're getting 30 times more into the brain than an infusion. And what this means is dose flexibility, right? It means that we can get so much more drug in there that we can lower the toxic level of a drug significantly, make it safer while maintaining efficacy or even greater efficacy. So those are the parts of the technology platform that make it really exciting. But the big problem for everyone is the blood-brain barrier. And I think a better understanding of that for all of the patients and everybody participating would benefit from. So Glenn, if you could enlighten them, please.
All right. So the blood-brain barrier, it evolved as a structure of cells that protect the brain tightly in ways different from which other organs are protected. In other words, it provides a different barrier compared to other organs, a much tighter barrier. One consequence of this is that only about 1% of molecules that reach drug development can actually access the brain effectively. This 1% decreases to near 0% when molecules exceed a certain size threshold, roughly a molecular weight of 1,000. Think 9 amino acids strung together. Kurve's work becomes particularly important here. The two most cited papers for intranasal delivery of drugs above this size threshold to the brain report clinical trials using the Kurve device, the technology platform. Both happen to involve treatment of Alzheimer's disease with our intranasal insulin product. We're obviously thrilled with that.
That's terrific. Let's talk a little bit more about what does this technology mean for Alzheimer's, something that we can all relate to and have been touched by in our lives.
Well, what it means to Alzheimer's patients is, I guess the big thing is hope, right? It's, when you get the diagnosis, it's devastating. You just were told, you have this disease and it's going to kill you. When that happens is going to vary slightly between patients, but this is something we can't help you with. There are other technologies that have done honorable work. Don't get me wrong. They do help for, periods of time, slow the progression of the disease, make quality of life slightly better, but it lasts for a finite period of time. It's 3 to 6 months, and then the progression continues. So what we really need to do is make sure that the Alzheimer's patients in the world know that there are things in development now, things they may access, relatively soon that might make a big difference, because we've had patients on our technology for more than 10 years. They're still driving cars. They're still going to work. They're actually performing better now than when they were diagnosed. So those are the kinds of things that, I think are important to an Alzheimer's patients or the Alzheimer's patients' families. You have a tremendous burden on the family to care for an Alzheimer's patient. And as it progresses, that burden gets higher and higher. And, it's a huge toll on the economy of the United States or on the global economy, just lost productivity and taking care of someone who may linger for a long time and really need a lot of help. So what we really want to do is, there is a new approach. There are things that we can do with our own drugs and with somebody else's drugs that we think are going to make a real disease modifying effect on it. So, with the number of patients that we have tested, and we've done mild cognitive impairment in 6 different subsets of impairment, right? So we have MCI and Alzheimer's, MCI and Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis, and HIV patients, and aging African Americans. All of these groups have, performance metrics that they want to improve upon that we can do a better job with. So that's really where we're shooting for, is to make sure people understand that we're here and that there is hope and that we actually have real disease modifying effects, as demonstrated in our peer-reviewed journal articles, all of which can be accessed on our website. So avail yourself of that if you're up for it. Glenn, have you got anything that you'd like to add to our Alzheimer's patient population?
In addition to Alzheimer's, Mark mentioned mild cognitive impairment, sort of a prelude to Alzheimer's. We also have some good data in general cognitive aging, right? What this in general means is that not just the 6 million patients with Alzheimer's in the US, but the 121 million patients over 50 in the US now have data supporting their potential benefit from our device with insulin. So there's a huge opportunity here in general to improve the quality of life as it progresses.
That's tremendous. Huge market opportunity, obviously, as outlined in this slide, going after big problems. It's really fantastic to see. So, Mark, Kurve is more than just a CPD technology, however. So you're also a specialty drug product company. What can you tell us about applications, other applications and success of Kurve's formulation, also known as intralin?
Yeah, so intralin itself is any intralin delivered intranasally with the Kurve device. We've used both major recombinant regular insulin products with our device. That is, Lilly's Humulin R and Novo Nordisk's Novolin R. We haven't used any Sanofi products as far as I'm aware, but we have shown that both of the major regular recombinant insulin products, these sort of standard of care, have been used successfully with our device. We are looking at specific formulations that are designed to deliver via the nose to the brain as opposed to the bloodstream via injection under the skin. This will add to our patent portfolio, so we're excited about that. But right now, we're able to take an off-the-shelf insulin and improve the lives of patients significantly.
Are there any other disease states that you're targeting?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we are involved in more than 22 human use clinical trials for CNS, and there's a partial list of those here. A lot of the differences between some of these Alzheimer's diseases are what I mentioned earlier, different formulations, all right, different medications. The one where phase 1, phase 2, and phase 2B is with the insulin. Johns Hopkins is using something different, as is the Schenkel Neurology Clinic. So, once again, we just want to be the ones who deliver it. But we will have our own drug. So, we're going to get drug revenue and device revenue, and we're going to be revenue generating on both sides of that. But again, there's too many things to do for us to do it by ourselves. Parkinson's is one where we had some really good success with the Schenkel Neurology Clinic, where we had one patient who was forced into retirement, couldn't eat soup anymore. His spoon would just not hold the liquid up to his mouth. His tremors were so bad. They were fitting him out for a wheelchair. Now that guy's back driving a car, back to work, plays tennis. Just things that we can resolve, symptoms we can resolve almost entirely. And we did this. This will be published soon. It's not part of the public domain yet. But we had some good success with multi-system atrophy, which is terrible. We did cognition in diabetics. So one of the things to remember is we're starting with Alzheimer's, but there's a lot more on the plate for Kurve technology.
Let me add one thing, please, and that is we do have published results in Parkinson's with a placebo-controlled trial. Very small number of patients, so it was pretty surprising actually to have statistically significant results in that small patient population. But we were thrilled with that, and there's a lot of interest in pursuing that as well.
Well, one of the things that we can we're pretty proud of is our work with the Department of Defense. We did traumatic brain injury and PTSD. One of the exciting studies was, dealing with people with PTSD who are former soldiers, and we're really thrilled to be working with them. Where they came in, they've got, serious PTSD. This was not, these were homicidal, suicidal tendencies, and there was a neuropeptide that wanted delivered when they were having an episode, which is dangerous, right? We want to make sure that the machine can be, easily accessed, easily used. So we made, devices that are very tall, can be kept around. You can keep it in your pocket. The product design is meant to be done quickly. So you're just grabbing it. And if you're having an episode like that, you're just using it. But also the cartridge system, you buy this once and you buy a bunch of these, and this can last anywhere from 1 day, 1 dose, to a month, depending on what it is that we're doing. So it pops on and off and you just use it. So if somebody's having an episode, it's as easy as that. Right. So we've done this for some people who are having seizures as well. If they generally see that coming to some extent, and if they have the device handy. We have other designs that are newer, that are trying to be a little more ergonomic. But again, very simple. Pop the cartridge on, pop the cartridge off. The patient will never leave you, because your technology given them right now is going to work. So we're a vendor in good standing with the Department of Defense, and we will maintain that. We have other opportunities that we're pursuing with them, and we want to be part of the healing process of our soldiers and our veterans. So, this is a really fun job to have. People come to you with issues, and with any luck, you're going to be able to participate and at least providing something, right? If not an outright cure, at least a therapy they can use that will improve their quality of life and extend it.
So one other thing that Marc's technology, our technology, is able to do is control the dosing. So I had a good chat with an academic medical center just a couple of days ago that wanted to give ketamine with the device. And I mentioned that we have the capability to limit very precisely how much can be given each day, thereby limiting the potential of abuse, because the FDA had pushed back saying, in this particular indication, we're really worried about abuse of ketamine. So our ability to provide that solution means that academic medical center is now interested in moving forward with us. That's
great, really exciting. And so I'd like to shift gears a little bit. Curve recently filed for a Regulation A offering, so you can raise the capital needed to continue growing. I personally also believe that it's a really exciting time in terms of options for companies to raise capital and for investors to get involved in projects that they're really excited about. So Marc, I think we'll kick this one over to you. What is a Reg A for folks that don't know? And also, why did you choose to go this route to raise your capital?
Well, a Reg A is not as well understood as it should be, and it's really exciting. So I'm glad that we're able to participate in it. It's something that was done a few administrations ago, and the ability to crowdfund, get accredited and unaccredited investors. So we can get small investments, medium-sized investments, and large investments. People can do it responsibly. You don't have to be a millionaire to invest in a Reg A plus. If you are a millionaire, please don't hesitate to do so as well. But I think our minimum, we have filed for a Regulation A. We have not gained final approval of that yet. So this is all, when this becomes live, this is how it will be discussion. But you can invest as little as $580. That's 100 shares. And you can buy as many as you want. The idea here is to, if you have a loved one or a friend or someone or a spouse that has anything in the CNS realm, you can play a meaningful part, make a profound difference in joining us in what we're trying to do. Because we need to make sure that this gets into people's hands who aren't in a clinical trial, who don't live near a place where a clinical trial is being held, where we can work with the FDA to roll this out and do our final clinical trial so that we can make it generally available. And we're not thinking just nationally. Obviously, we'd like to do this internationally, but we have to start somewhere, and that somewhere is with this Regulation A plus. Get us the funding that we need to take those next few steps, and then we can build from there. So, we found this to be extremely attractive to us. And, it gives real transparency to investors. You end up with an account that's online. You can always see where your e-certificate is, where the stock price is going to be at. The interface with that is great. A lot of the market intelligence we get for a lot of what we do comes from your company, Scott. So we're grateful of that. So this Regulation A+ has been a real boon to us. So we're really looking forward to moving it along, and we're real excited. We feel that we'll get our approvals in the near future, but when that happens, we'll certainly let everybody know.
Great. I've talked to a lot of people that are getting involved in these types of opportunities, and again, it's an exciting time, solving big problems, but also for anybody to get involved in something that they feel strongly about. So congratulations on that. How much money will you be raising? What's the use of those proceeds? How will those funds help the company get to the next milestones and goals?
Well, we're targeting when we go live to do a raise of 50 million. We're going to run a phase 3 with insulin, which we believe will be a final phase before we launch our first product. We're also going to invest in the Alzheimer's drug and protocol that we're working with in Southern California. We're going to set up high volume manufacturing. We need to be able to assure our big pharma partners the supply of the product. So we're going to do a lot with that money. We're going to run a phase 3, we're going to run a phase 2, and we're going to set up high volume manufacturing. So that's a lot. But we have exactly the team that can pull this off, have done it before. So there's no reason why we can't do it again. We know the ins and outs, we know the lay of the land. So there's no reason why we can't be successful doing that. We plan on moving quickly. We've had the full landscape of what it is we're going to present to the world established for quite some time now. So this is an exciting time to be part of Kurve Therapeutics.
That's great. And all investors know there's risk and reward involved in getting in with various companies and making different investments. Why should investors that are on this call, not on this call, why should they take a risk with Kurve Therapeutics? Well,
we're going to initially do Alzheimer's, right? And Alzheimer's is a huge market. Those numbers aren't easy. Aren't easy. Those numbers aren't hard to find, right? What will the first disease-modifying therapy for Alzheimer's be worth on an annual basis in just the United States alone, let alone globally, which we will pursue. So if that's all we were doing, that's pretty good. And we've run phase 1, phase 2, and phase 2B. And the only reason you progress is because you're being successful. And all of that has been peer-reviewed and published. So we feel we're one phase 3 from completing that process. So if you're going to get involved in a company that's doing delivery technology and a drug, make sure they've gone through the process to the point where you are now. If you're going to invest in a company, it's got to be before they do phase 3, because otherwise they're not going to need you. They're going to be out in the market and they're going to be generating revenue. But if you take a look at the rest of this list, if an investment in Kurve Therapeutics is also going to have you invested in everything else on this list. So when we start launching products where we're going to be treating Parkinson's and cognition and diabetics and traumatic brain injury and mood and anxiety disorders, you're going to be involved in all of that. So you're going to own a piece of the company that is doing all of these things. And those are all the things that we're involved in right now. So these are all things we're doing at this time. What about the things that we haven't started yet, the things that are just proposed, things that the incoming calls that come every week, or the pharmaceutical companies right now that are developing something and they don't have a way of delivering it yet? We want them to know about it so they can call us. Later today, we're having another conversation with a company doing something that's really exciting. And, it's something we approached with before. So that will add to this list. I think that's going to continue to happen. So don't look at it as simply an Alzheimer's disease play. This is a technology platform that they would be investing in. And to put a fine point on that, we recently been working with a company in Israel called Genesis, and they are doing stem cells for brain tumors. So what they had to do was get the drug to the tumor, but they had to get it in the brain, and they couldn't do it through an infusion. They couldn't do it any other way, and brain tumors are notoriously difficult to treat anyway. So what we ended up doing was we partnered with them so that their stem cells, their mesenchymal stem cells, could be delivered nose to brain. And we're going to be doing a press release on this in a short time, where we shrunk the tumor by more than 50%. So there's a little dabble in oncology now where we're treating cancer. But it's still nose to brain drug delivery. There's a lot of things we want to get involved in. The CNS is our main focus right now. But if we can help brain tumor patients with stem cells, why would we not? It was exciting. Stem cells are large cells, and were thought to be too large to get into the brain, and we have actually proven that that is not the case. Glenn, would you like to add something?
Yeah, so first of all, I personally was shocked by the stem cells. You want to talk about something that you're trying to, that's large, right? Certainly larger than 9 amino acids stuck together, right? And the fact that we were able to get that in sufficient concentration, high enough in the nose, in the animal model in this case, to get into the brain, to me was pleasantly shocking, right? So I was really thrilled to see that. Also, if you're thinking about risk reduction, which is what you hope to get when you're investing, right? You want to see something that's risk reduced. You're lucky if you're getting into the Series A, which is basically where we are. If the drug in question is in clinical trials at all, we actually have 5 clinical trials versus placebo where the drug is performed reasonably well, and sometimes remarkably well, and in most cases, frankly. We've seen these improvements not just in the primary endpoint of cognitive performance, but also in the largest study so far that went 18 months out from start, we saw versus the placebo start group an increasing advantage in quality of life as the study progressed. And that means a lot. That's not just you can do a crossword puzzle or you can get yourself out of bed, but it also means that your family's lifestyle has also improved, right? They're spending less in your care. They also have more autonomy. So there's a huge upside here that is spoken for in terms of the de-risking that's already been done with this asset.
That's great. And you've touched on, this is really exciting. I'd like to, before we have some questions that are starting to come in from the audience, and I want to make sure we save some time for that. Before we get to those, and you've touched on this a little bit, but do you plan on working with pharmaceutical companies? Talk a little bit more about the future of next generation treatments. And really also I want to get to the question that's probably on folks' minds is how can folks get involved if they want to be involved in this exciting future here? How can they get involved?
To understand the question better, Scott, do you mean involved in the company as an investor or involved in the company as a patient or a patient family member?
Okay, so let me break that one down. Are you going to be working with any pharmaceutical companies?
Yeah, we are, and we already are. We just want to. We're bringing it up a lot because we want to expand on it, right? We want to make sure that if they have a new molecule or they have a repurposed formulation they want to work with, getting it into the brain, that we're the first call they make, because we do want to be across the board. And when you talk about the number of disease states that are out there for us to treat, no one company could do it all anyway, right? So we want to do the drugs that we're interested in, but we also want to invite in all of the other drug makers or formulators and people who invent molecules and want to have an action on the body to start with a phone call to Kurve first. One of the things that we offer big pharma and pharmaceutical companies in general is the ability to take any liquid and make it work in the technology platform. So a lot of the other technologies like spray bottles and metered dose inhalers have formulation issues where if it's high viscosity or the powder's not milled down far enough, they can't deliver it consistently and within FDA guidelines. Well, what we did with ours, because we have electricity and airflow and electronics, we can actually control a lot more what happens with the liquid. So we're able to process the liquid from a chamber into droplets that are ideal for nose to brain delivery, regardless of the characteristics. And we've done this with more than one drug. So not more than one drug total, but more than one drug at the same time. So we've done combination products as high as 4 drugs in 4 separate chambers at the same time. So if you picture this reservoir here has 4 different chambers and it's feeding liquid to a single point, and we can actually feed them off those chambers at different rates. So the patient is going to get 4 drugs in a single dose while only having to actually use the machine once. So we've done that nose to brain. We've done that with 2. We've done it with 4. We've done it with 2 in the same reservoir. So the technology platform has tremendous capability and flexibility in formulation work that we've already done. We don't have issues processing liquid. We even had, to be honest with you, Pharmaceutical Companies ask us, hey, can you spray anti-aging liquids on people's faces? Yes, we can. So they asked us to, so we did, but that stuff was like toothpaste. We were able to deliver it. So there's nothing in the world of the drug formulations that we haven't been able to deliver. And one of the best things about what we do is we have electronics. So we have an electronic interface here that actually recharges the battery, but also has the opportunity for Big Pharma to know what the compliance rate is. If you talk to a pharmaceutical company, the first 2 things they're going to say is, does it work? And will the patient use it? All right. So if it becomes too difficult, too time consuming, too cumbersome to use, then the patient doesn't use it. Or if they're getting, mild efficacy, for my own case with chronic sinusitis, I stopped using spray bottles altogether because there was no point. So what we've always tried to do is we want to make it smaller, quieter, faster, get the delivery to where the patient will be compliant with it. But we also want to know, are they using it as it was prescribed? So the concept being the patient gets prescribed this, they take it to their doctor, he hooks up the USB cable to it, it connects it to his computer. And now we have, he'll be able to know every time the button was pressed, what time of day it was. And are you using it 2 times a day like you're supposed to? Well, you're not, and you're complaining that it's not working. All right, so you got to get that usage rate up, and we will be much better able to monitor how the patients are doing. And we can dose count. We can send dose alerts to your phone with these same electronics. Hey, it's time to use your device. Go grab it out of the refrigerator, get it out of your briefcase. Right. So there's a lot of things we can build in, and the FDA is thrilled with all of these features because it just gives us more data to track. There's just a lot. There's a lot that we offer, not just in deliverables, right? We're going to get the drug into the brain, but we're going to let you track all this information too. We're going to give you all of these bells and whistles if you choose them. They're optional. And then we'll be able to really, in real time, track these patients so much better than we have been so far, right? Every patient is going to tell you, yeah, I'm using it exactly as you said, but it's not working. Well, that's usually not so.
All right, great. So now we're gonna shift over to the audience questions, and I've got pinged 2 times now separately, and so I'm going to ask this one directly. I know that the Reggae is not open now, but if folks are interested in becoming an investor when it does open, can they get on a waiting list? How do they do it? And then we're going to get into the questions.
Yeah, there's if you go to the kurvetx.com website, you'll be able. There's a wait list tab under Invest Now, and you'll be able to click that and you'll be notified. So it should be fairly self-explanatory on the website. But the Invest Now button will go live when we get fully approved to go live, and then it'll be just a matter of taking you right to the portal. So it's a really remarkable system, very, very well done, and we're very pleased with it.
Okay, terrific. So first question: when is Kurve estimated to be ready for market launch? Well,
obviously that's going to depend on the timing of the fundraising, right? So it's more of a matter of, we're going to say 24 months from the 24 to 30 months from the close of the round, which probably will be many months from now. So the money has to come in first, then we have to build it, then we have to test it, show it to the FDA. So it's going to be some time. But this is the process. This is how all drugs and drug device combinations go. We just need to tip that domino. The lion's share of the work has been done. This is the last round.
Yeah, and that is important to understand. Again, a lot of drugs that raising their first round, really, they've got several phases left. We really think we've got a shot at just going straight into phase 3, quite possibly a single trial, because we've already got some decent, very strong, I would say, dose ranging data. So we've got a good shot at doing this pretty quickly.
Okay, great. And I'm going to start going through more questions here. We're going to jump around a little bit. Let's talk about safety. There's a question about safety of the technology. Can someone address safety issues?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'll start. I'll let Glenn finish. The question we get a lot with insulin is, is it going to affect my blood sugar? Because diabetics, obviously have a problem with that. And I will tell you that I am a type 2 diabetic, so it was on my mind as well. The insulin is not mucosally available in your nose, meaning if you put it in your nose, it's not going to get in your blood. So it has absolutely no effect on your blood sugar. So that is safe. We've been delivering drugs for the insulin for Alzheimer's since 2005. So we've tested hundreds of patients, perhaps even as many as 1,000, not really sure, but there's been 0 adverse events, right? None. The worst thing that people say is that it stings a little when it goes up their nose. Every patient gets used to that, and it ends up not stinging anymore because they just got used to it. So it's never been a factor that said, it stings, I'm not going to use it. So that's really the only thing. We're hoping with our new formulation to formulate that effect out, which is, where our insulin comes from. But as far as things like, I suspect the question came from someone who's thought about Alzheimer's with Biogen's product, Aduhelm, which had, a safety profile that made a lot of people uncomfortable. And I don't mean to single them out, but the problem, they were using their highest dose to get any effect at all. And we could have taken that same dose. And trust me, we've given the thought of contacting Biogen to in-license Aduhelm, because we can lower the toxicity significantly because we have greater dose flexibility, right? So if we can get 3,000% more in the brain than an infusion can, which we've shown in clinical testing, that we can then lower the toxicity level and make it much, much safer. So if 1 in 3 patients was getting some kind of ARIA, some kind of brain bleed when they used Aduhelm, how much of that could we mitigate? All of it? Some of it? Most of it? To us, the dose flexibility makes us so much safer than any other route, because we can get more in, and therefore we can modify the formulation down. Glenn, would you like to add?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is just this, there is a wonderful review of intranasal insulin studies to date. No clinically significant decreases in blood sugar. Every once in a while, you'll see a slight nudge down, but nothing where they felt they had to stop the medication or anything like that. A couple other bits. One is just the size of the molecule means that intranasally, it's too large to get absorbed into the bloodstream. Again, anything above about molecular weight of 1,000, think 9 amino acids strung together, it doesn't penetrate the bloodstream very well through the nasal mucosa, where the nasal spray is going. So that allows us to focus it on getting into the brain, assuming you're not just losing it to the GI tract. And again, we're good at that. We're good at actually getting it where it needs to go. And then finally, insulin itself is an endogenous compound. It's something we already make, and we make it in the brain, actually. What we're doing with insulin is we are increasing the longevity of cells, basically. We're increasing brain-derived neurotropic factor, a drug that people have been trying very hard to get into the brain. There was a a poorly designed experiment with clinical trials with Parkinson's, but they actually put a pump inside someone's brain to deliver a brain-derived neurotropic factor to a particular target in the brain to help these patients. They ended up giving a continuous infusion when it's pretty clear they probably should have been giving pulses. So that was one of the problems. But another problem is you had to open up the person's skull and put the pump in, right? Which is something you'd rather avoid, right? And what we're doing is we're administering a natural compound, again, something that's already in the brain, and it pushes up this level of brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is why we think we've got such good results with Alzheimer's. Certainly one of the reasons.
All right, great. Next question that's come in. What are your current challenges in delivering the drug for Alzheimer's disease?
Frankly, none. We've been doing this for so long that we have such a great handle on all of these formulations. I mean, something could come in tomorrow that is going to be a challenge, but we don't have a crystal ball for that. But right now, we have the technology platform is so sophisticated at this point that there's really not a liquid we can't do. As I already mentioned, we've done as many as 4 at a time. Commonly, we've done 2 at a time. So the being able to manipulate the liquid was our very first task back in the very beginning for chronic sinusitis. So, being able to, we've spent the last 15 years figuring out how to take any liquid, no matter what the characteristics of it are, and make it behave. So if you'd asked this question 15 years ago, we could have made a list of the challenges and what things we need to do. We need better control of the atomization rate. We need better control of the droplet size. But we figured all of that out. Again, it's something where it's really lowered the risk for someone who is interested in our company on an investment level at some point, is that a lot of the risk has been already removed because we've been at this for enough time to have solved the technical issues. And right now we don't, we're always doing R&D. We're going to be filing new patents on a regular basis because that's what we do. We're always innovating. We're always trying to figure out new ways of doing things. We're adding technologies and ideas from other people, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. It's great when people call us with these kinds of ideas. So the challenges we have for Alzheimer's disease right now are none, but we really don't have any challenges for any of these diseases with any of these liquids because we've delivered them all. Even the stem cells, which is very new, and the press release hasn't even gone out yet, was amazingly successful. So that was the toughest one to date, and we figured it out. So I think you can have a lot of confidence that if you're going to send us the liquid, don't bet against us.
Okay, great. And we're getting some technical questions. I think we went through one of the points earlier that's prompted a few questions around the CPD technology. Can you maybe talk a little bit more? I'm getting questions about personalization. Is there a USB interface? I'm sure there'll be questions about monitoring. Maybe talk a little bit more about CPD technology because I've got a couple questions all related to it.
Okay. In particular, I'm afraid I'm not understanding what I should be telling you.
Well, maybe give us a deeper dive on the CPD technology if you can.
Okay. The CPD technology started with being able to control droplet size. The way the nasal cavity works is you take a breath and 90% of the air goes below your inferior turbinate. So it's running very low in your nasal cavity down to your lungs because that's the purpose, right? You need to breathe, and that's part of the deal of being alive. So we had to be able to get droplets to go vertically while the airflow was going horizontally. And if you make the droplets really small, like a pulmonary nebulizer, 70% is just heading to the lungs because they're just being grabbed and taken. 0% is getting anywhere near the olfactory region with a spray bottle because the droplets are simply too big, moving in 2 dimensions. So it just goes and hits the ceiling and then just drops out. So what we needed to do was take a corner. Right, we needed to be able to take corners, and we're able to take hairpin turns in the nasal cavity. So the idea that we got control of the droplets, we really got control of the droplets. We can make a droplet any size between 3 and 300 microns, 1 micron at a time. So if Scott Pantel's drug is best at 17 microns, that's what's coming out. If Glenn Cornett's drug is best at 23 microns, that's what's coming out. And the variables that we add to that are how fast do you want the drug to be delivered, right? In nose to brain, we found that slower is better. So if we're going to make them breathe at least 7 times in one nostril and 7 times in the other, that is where we get best results, maybe 7 to 10. For chronic sinusitis, 1 breath will do it, right? So we can change that atomization rate depending on whatever the application is. So whether it's 100 microliters in 20 seconds or 100 microliters in 1 second, it doesn't matter. The device doesn't care. And then the exit velocity is a deposition tool, and the turbulent flow is the key. It allows us to take corners and allows us to steer where it's going to go.
So
Go ahead,
mention
Glenn.
something important. Slower is better. The problem is with other technologies, sometimes you can actually get things up to the brain, but you use a nebulizer, it takes about 30 minutes to do a regular dose with most nebulizers. And what our technology does is it basically does what a nebulizer does in terms of distributing it where you want to go, but it does it in about 30 or 20 seconds rather than 30 or 20 minutes. That means you're going to get much higher patient compliance and the patients are going to have much better lives.
Great. Okay, another question that's come in. What are the next steps of stem cells in your projects?
Well, the next steps with the stem cells in the project is we're going to go from we're going to go into phase 1, and it's not ours. It's Orgenesis is. So we're going to be the device of choice for them. So we did the preclinical work, got the good results in the brain tumor shrinking, and we're going to be taking the next step into humans. But stem cells have a lot of opportunities, and they have a lot of opportunities in the Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease model as well. And our principal investigator down in Southern California has seen these options, and we're actually piggybacking. This is exciting stuff. We're piggybacking with University of California, Irvine, the Schenkel Clinic with William Schenkel, who's the PI, and some of the work that we've done. And all of this talent and all of this stuff is coming together to say, all right, if you can get stem cells in the brain, we found that in 3 weeks, they all die. So we want to be able to extend the life of the stem cells. Well, this group over here figured that part of it out. You figured out how to get it in. We're going to figure out how to get the stem cells out of the human body. And that's where personalization sort of comes in. The way some of these operations are working is they're taking the stem cells out of the patient's own body. So they're going in to take some stem cells out of the liver. They take those stem cells, populate them out to they have billions of them, and then we're delivering them back into the body to the site that we need. So that's the exciting part of that. But when you start to be able to partner with the people down that have pieces of this figured out, and you have your own part, just having that clearinghouse of ability to talk to these people are going to let us bring these therapies to everyone, right? So if we can get stem cells into the brain, somebody else figures out how to make them last longer than 3 weeks. Now we're having 6 month doses, and you get a dose every 6 months instead of a dose every week, which can be enormously expensive, right? So we really want to be able to make this affordable to everyone.
That's great. Okay, we're coming up at the end of the hour now. And so for folks that had questions that didn't get answered, I'm sure you can reach out to Marc and Glenn directly. We'll get those questions answered. Before we wrap things up, Marc or Glenn, we've covered a lot of information here. Any final comments or closing remarks you'd like to make?
Well, I mean, going back to our overall mission is to be at the forefront of neurodegenerative diseases. We're making great strides in the central nervous system. Pharma, we want you to be our partners. Patients, we want you to look us up. If if you have a loved one that's a patient, look us up, find out if we have a study near you. If we don't, you should still be talking to us because we may have options for you. As far as the Reg A Plus goes, we're hoping to be approved in the near future. We're still waiting on that. When it happens, as little or as much as you want, just get involved. You can put it on a credit card. This is something that everyone can participate in, regardless of your income level, and play a role. So we'd really like you to do that. So sign up on the wait list. Think about CNS disorders and what kind of role you'd like to play. And remember the list that we had up in front of you earlier, where it's not just Alzheimer's. There's a lot more to follow, and it's going to be a fun time. So that's my closing statement. I really hope that that you all feel willing to do it.
All right. Well, Mark, Glenn, thank you so much today for your time. We covered so much. Indeed, an exciting future ahead. I want to thank everybody that joined this call and was a part of the discussion with these two remarkable people who are truly on a mission to turn the tide. And their passion behind the work at Kurve Therapeutics comes out in all that you do. And again, to reiterate what Mark said, if you want to learn more about their next generation medtech opportunity and how you can be a part of impacting the lives of millions of people, visit kurvetx.com. And until then, I hope everybody has a great day wherever you are. And thank you again for joining us.
Scott, thank you so much for hosting. It was really a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.